This is comics illustrator Ron Frenz, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Lunatics. It's me, Phil. Lilith is here.
Hello.
Justin is here, live and on camera.
Yes.
And, again, it's part 2 of our Electric Superman, which will be going for a while here. But tonight we're joined by special guest. He was part of it. He's in there. He drew this Superman. It is Mr. Ron Frenz. Hello, sir.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Pleasure to join you. I will be the lunatic for this evening.
Oh, good. I can sit
You
back
bring the
this
tape.
time then.
I'll bring the lunatic.
So,
Perfect.
So like I said, you were in on it back in the day. So I've heard stories about like what is it, like once a year, like all the creative teams on the 4 Superman books back then would like have like a yearly summit to like plot out the year.
Exactly. Yes. This actually, it was on an off year, I guess, because I don't remember this being something that got talked about a lot at a meeting. But what I do remember is there was talk about his powers were going to change, and we all received a memo. All the pencilers on the job, I guess probably the inkers as well, all of the illustrators on the team received a memo that he was going to get these new powers. They were going to be electrically based, and he was going to be his new suit, whatever it might be, was going to be a containment suit. And we were all invited to submit designs. And I was, relatively the new guy on the block, and I didn't have an immediate inspiration or anything. So I really wasn't planning on joining in, to tell you the truth. But at one point I was sitting in my studio and had finished up my work for the day, and I had a couple of thoughts. So I put a few down, and some of them were overly mechanical containment type things, But then I started thinking, well, screw the technology part of it, because it's a superhero comic. What if Superman were invented from the beginning with these electrical powers and just come up with a suit, and you can do printed circuitry and everything. It doesn't have to be overly mechanical or anything. So I started throwing some ideas together and messed with the S a little bit and everything. There were 2 reasons I believe my design was chosen, because they sent me a Xerox of my sketch for the cover, and they said, this is what we're just going to go with this. And I said, so are we going to do a month where everybody gets to do their designs on their book or something? And they said, no, we picked your design. And oh, wow, okay, thank you. And I found out in the years since that there were 2 things that fell in my favor. One is I played with the S a little bit. I don't believe anybody else did, the designs I saw. And that gave merchandising something to, the sales department, something to really play off of. And there were the T-shirts and watches and things like that could play up the new S symbol, because it was still recognizable but different. And the other thing was, for years, Glenn Whitmore, the colorist on all the books, had been pushing to do a new version of Superman Red, Superman Blue. At every summit, he was suggesting, let's do a new version of Superman Red, Superman Blue. So when they saw that mine was monocolor blue, I think it opened the door to, we could also finally, give Glenn what he's always wanted and do Superman Red, Superman Blue. And so those are the two things that played into them choosing my design. And they did run in the back of the books for a while. They ran other people's designs. John Bogdanov came very close to what I was doing. It had more like an electrical special effect. I think it kept changing and everything. And I think it was yellow and black or something like that. But everybody else pretty much did some kind of a mechanical, almost armored type of a containment suit or something. And, I went back to the original idea of superheroes, that it's the human figure in motion and all that kind of stuff. So it was amazing for them to have chosen mine. That piece of art of Superman standing there has probably been the most reprinted piece of art I've ever been a part of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love that.
It was in Time Magazine. It was in TV Guide. It was everywhere, in every local paper in the country when they were doing the big promotional blitz. So it was kind of interesting to be a part of. And as much as people say it was a lot of the naysayers say it was embarrassing and it was just a blip on Superman's history, which is true because he has such a long history. But I have never seen so many action figures of any one thing in my life. They keep making new action figures of it because people are at least showing them to me, if I'm not actually finding them. I have several of them myself, but they keep making action figures of it, which is just crazy to me. There's that.
They have action figures. They have Funkos. There's so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And when they did the 75th anniversary animation piece, did you guys ever see that? It was a wonderful little thing that dissolved from different eras of Superman and everything. They did it for the 75th, and they used it. They've used it since for different anniversaries. But it was a beautiful piece of animation, and Superman Red, Superman Blue are represented in it, and Dean Cain isn't.
I love it.
I took some schadenfreude from that because I was never a big fan. So I was like, hey, how about that? I made the cut. Dean Cain didn't.
That's fantastic.
I'm trying to remember this cover here with the Superman standing there. It was the 90s, but did they ever do any special version of this cover?
It was glow in the dark.
Oh, was it? Yes.
Oh, glow in the dark.
The white parts were glow in the dark.
So I was gonna say I only ever had the regular newsstand line. Oh, I need to go in the dark.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that when people want me to sign it. If I don't have a silver pen, I sign it on the logo, and it's got that little grit to it.
Oh, yeah, cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that would need some kind of special effect or something.
Yeah, like holographic or glow in the dark's perfect.
Lenticular, always lenticular.
Yeah, do them in the way he's supposed to look and the blue thing.
Yeah.
So then all right, you got the design, and then does everyone get together and plot out the year? And it's like, okay, so halfway through we're gonna go with the whole Superman Blue, Superman Red thing.
Well, we got to that a little faster than I would have liked, to tell you the truth. But the reason that I know it didn't all get plotted at one of the summits is because if you read the stuff, I mean, you were saying, Justin, that you've just recently discovered it. You're reading it now, or you have just read it.
Mm-hmm.
If you read all the different titles, there was never really a cohesive single idea why his powers changed. Dan Horn, he's a dear friend of mine. He's a fantastic illustrator. Dan Jurgens, his thought was that it was affected by the phasing with the new Kandor. When he went into Kandor, and it was it was a phase dimension and everything, and that screwed with his atomic structure. But as the story continued and they got to the Millennium Giants, there were all kinds of different concepts that were thrown out as to why his cellular structure mutated and how it got fixed and on and on and on. So I have a feeling they probably would have hammered it into a shape that everybody would have agreed on had it been something that was produced by the summits. Mm-hmm. But listen, it was a tough gig doing the weekly books. I was thrilled to be there. I was flattered and humbled to be working on Superman at all. But when I think, did I go to more than one summit? I was really only on the book for a couple of years, so I don't know if I went to more than one or not. Because by the time I got there, Mike Carlin had become an executive editor and wasn't actually leading the books anymore. I had two different editors. Joey Cavalieri was the second one, and I'm having trouble remembering the other one. I'm an old man, forgive me.
Was it Eddie Brigade? No.
Keep trying. Does somebody have a copy of one of the books?
Mike, are you thinking of Mike McAvee?
No, he was one of the assistants. He was very hands-on, but there was one other guy besides Joey Cavalieri that had the job briefly. And basically the only point I want to make is those poor guys were put in an almost impossible situation, because it is no exaggeration to say only Mike Carlin would have ridden herd on that crew of creatives, okay? And he could do what they did for as long as they did. And I have nothing but respect for the guys like Juergens and Ordway and Roger Stern and Brett Breeding, who did it for any period of time, because it was a meat grind. I mean, you didn't get a plot and you couldn't sit back and, for like a week and remunerate on it and think about it or anything. You had to produce, because the next guy was waiting to see, he might have needed reference, or you might need a character created or something like that. And you had to turn the work around. So I found it, as much as I had done monthly work up to that point, I found it very intense. And it was something.
Oh, I'm sure it's like an ongoing relay race. Every week it's like, okay, someone's handing it to you. You got to take it to the next guy. Yeah.
That's it. And it was brutal. It was probably a lot like working on, because I had a very brief experience working on newspaper strips. I did like 9 or 10 weekends of the Spider-Man strip at one point, and I couldn't do it. I mean, it was just, that's another one of those things where you don't have a moment to think about it. You really have to be working every minute. And I was trying to do it while I was doing Thor. And I had told Stan Lee from the beginning, if it affects my Thor work, I'm going to have to hand it back. And he said, no, I understand it. And that's what ended up happening after a relatively short period of time. But there are certain situations that, anybody that does a daily adventure strip, again, that's incredible to me, because you don't have time to think about it. You are constantly producing.
That's why I find it incredible. Like, so these guys who write and draw the book at the same time. Like, Dan was writing and drawing the Superman book for a while.
Yeah, yes, he was.
And I was going to say, I think so. I guess you guys must have got along, because not only did he let you draw the book, but then he let you play in the one issue, Booster Gold, his creation, Booster Gold.
Yeah, we never had much of a conversation at all.
Really?
He turned in his plots. Frankly, my impression was that he wasn't all that happy to be stuck with the truth.
Really?
But like I said, I was honored to be there. I was pleased to be there. But yeah, we didn't have a lot of contact, which is not unusual. In the comics industry, DeFalco and I are the exception, not the rule, that we kind of share a brain and work together as closely as we do. You'll see plenty of examples of writers and illustrators who never meet and don't really collaborate on that level. And Dan was very what's a good word for it? He was very protective of his ideas, and I think he was very much an animal that wasn't interested in opening up and taking ideas from other people, because otherwise why are they paying him? You know what I mean? So he was kind of very jealous with his concepts and his ideas, and he had earned that. There was no two ways about it. But because K.C. Carlson was the other editor.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And at one point, K.C. wanted me to become more involved with the stories. And I said, Dan's not really interested in that, K.C. He went, well, if you don't try, then it's on you. And I went, oh, okay, I'll start putting in liner notes like I used to for DeFalco and all that kind of stuff. And if that's what you want to see, let's do it. and it kind of proved that Dan wanted to keep the writing separate. And given the turnaround time on these stories and all this, I completely get it. I understand why. It's not an indictment at all of how he wanted to do it, because he had done it for so long. But occasionally, like with the Booster Gold story, where the Booster Gold was redesigned again, Dan did the design. Mm. In fact, there were even times when he would send a layout for a splash page that he had a very set idea about. And again, I was hired to be the pencil monkey, so he wants to send me a layout, I'll do the layout, that kind of. So it was never a conflict. There was never an argument or a fight or hard feelings as far as I was concerned. So it was great. What ended up happening though was that the Superman blue costume was, they were trying to do like a Venom thing. They were going to take the costume and do something with it. Mm. And because they were going to do something with it, they offered it to me. And that's what became those 4 issues over all the titles of Strange Visitor. That was a concept that I came up with at one point. DeFalco was going to join me on it, but they ended up never coming to a deal on DeFalco coming over to DC. So I got my brother to script it for me, who had done some writing for Marvel in the 80s. And when those 4 issues were done, by the time they were done, the DC Creative Council was disinterested in pursuing it as a series of it. And I said, so am I going back on Superman? And they went, no, we just hired brand new teams for all the Superman books. And I went, oh, okay. So luckily, as I have been extremely fortunate in the past, there was something going on at Marvel that I was able to get back over to Marvel and develop MC2 with Tom DeFalco. So Spider-Girl. He had done Spider-Girl What If, and that was all percolating behind the scenes in the my final days on Strange Visitor, and so I had somewhere else to go. But yeah, this whole Strange Visitor 4-part story kind of fell between the cracks of the end of one era and the beginning of the next era. And, it ran through all the Superman titles for a month, and not a lot of people saw it. Strange Visitor never really caught with any other writers. They did a few other things with her, and then she died in like Our Worlds at War or something like that. Mm-hmm. In a double-page splash by Bill Sienkiewicz, of all people. And she sacrificed herself to save the world or something, and nobody's talked about it since.
Yeah, that was a weird time. Like, they shook up a lot of the books, the Superman books, the Batman books. They just brought in like all new people. So I think a lot of stuff fell to the side. So you were on the Superman books at this point for a little while, but I mean, you had been filling in for like a while, right? Because I think I remember like you did an annual, like what was that?
I had done 2 annuals back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yes. Titano.
The first 2 annuals under Byrne's revamp. Mm-hmm. I was casting a net for work and got the first one, and then a year later I was lucky enough to get the second one with Roger Stern as well, and both with Brett Breeding. And and that was a lot of fun because it was interesting in the early days of John Byrne's revamp, because nobody really knew what kind of an animal it was yet. It was, I think his working theory was it's still the same Superman, and all of those stories happened unless he says they didn't. That was one of those. And for a 30-some page annual, he produced like 2 or 3 paragraphs on one page, 1 or 2. And I said to Carlin, I said, this is my first crack at Superman, and we're not quite sure what's going on with his power set and all this kind of stuff. I said, I don't know if I can do this. And he goes, well, let me go talk to John. And he called me back and said, yeah, John's busy with the other 2 books. He's not really interested in revisiting this. He said, how about this? You and I will sit down and we will break the story and worry about the pacing together and all that. And of course, Mike didn't take any kind of credit because he was the editor. So, but he really did the story breaks for me. and it was a fun issue. I enjoyed doing Titano, and then the second one was Roger Stern basically reintroducing all of the Kirby concepts back into John Byrne's Superman world.
Yep.
And so that was a lot of fun as well. Yeah. But yeah, that was my real contact with Superman before I was hired after Thunderstrike was a couple of years.
So during this Electric era, like I know, we talked about you and Dan, but did you have any contact with the? I just wanted to understand the concept. Did you have any contact with the other creative teams at all, like other artists or anything, or were things kind of contained?
Only at the summits or at conventions or something like that. I have since sat on panels with these guys, and there's some terrific creative minds. I was a big fan of what John Bogdanov was. He used to be a really nice guy, and we seem to have the same roots in our Superman love. I'm old enough that one of my main connections is the old George Reeves series and the Filmation series from the 60s.
Yes.
So and then we all became familiar when they started to be released with the Fleischer serials and stuff. And everybody kind of has similar roots in the character and stuff.
Yeah, you can see a lot of George Reeves and John's or some of those Man of Steel issues. Yeah.
Oh, well, Schuster especially. I mean, his Superman was very grounded in Schuster's original concept, and I was kind of following that. My Superman, my Clark Kent world was always a cross between George Reeves and Schuster's smiling, dimpled character, and and John kind of gave me permission to do that by doing it for years before. So yeah, I mean, everybody else was more into a Christopher Reeve, which makes a heck of a lot of sense. I think Dan Jurgens' version was very grounded in Chris Reeve, and who could blame him? But and for most of my run, we up until right before the Superman Blue stuff, when I came on the book, it was after he had come back from that unfortunate death thing, and he had the longer hair and all this, and Clark was wearing a little man bun in the back and all that kind of stuff, and people really have thoughts about that. People, they really have feelings about it.
The hair was more controversial than the Superman redesign.
Yes,
I think
it was more controversial than the death or the electric blue or
getting married, any of it. Yeah,
getting married.
Yeah. I never got that myself.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of characters got long hair in the '90s. I think Superman was one of the last characters they expected to have the long hair.
I guess that's part of it, but Superman, when Carlin came on board and they came up with the Triangle era and did what they did with that character, with those creatives in that character, top dog at Marvel Star Comics was outselling Superman before those guys got there. Okay, so and believe me, I'm a huge fan of Kurt Swan, and I was born in 1960, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s with Kurt Swan. I remember Kryptonite Nevermore being that's what we had for a reboot, and it was gorgeous. Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson, all that. But the character had fallen out of favor. The character had fallen out of vogue and was not appreciated, which was one of the reasons they did the Death of Superman. Because apparently at a lot of the meetings before I got there, people would say, when they were trying to come up with the next idea, was, well, let's kill him. And at one point, Mike Carlin decided, and then, the old rule of improvisation, it's like, okay, we kill him. And then, and the whole concept of World Without a Superman and Funeral for a Friend all grew out of that, which is what made that whole storyline so different and fascinating. And they were basically doing a meta story about, you guys don't appreciate Superman enough. What if he's gone? What if we take him away from you? What are we losing if we lose Superman? And the rest was history, comics history, literally. Yeah. So yeah, I was reading it at the time and just enjoying the heck out of it. Brett Breeding and I were friends, and he was very much involved in it and everything. So it's kind of started out with me supporting him, but at the same time, I was enjoying the heck out of the storyline. So yeah, it was wonderful to see.
Oh yeah, great. Funeral for a Friend, Reign of the Supermen. I mean, that was
yeah. I loved all that stuff. I was a big fan before I got a chance to actually stick my toe in.
All right, so like the whole long year of Electric Superman. Well, besides the Superman suit you designed, what other characters were like your favorites to like play with?
I actually liked drawing Perry White a lot.
Really?
Nice.
Lois was always everybody had a different look, a different feel for Lois. I mean, for me, there was always like, are we using Terry Hatcher or are we, who are we using? I mean, I did some stuff for Warner Brothers through Brett Breeding much later, and I found myself gravitating towards and I'm not going to be able to think of her name yet. It wasn't Casey Carlson, but the actress that played Lois on Smallville.
Mm. Erica. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was very much, I thought she was a terrific Lois and kind of became the model in my head for Lois Lane at that point. But that was after I was off the books. But there's actually a piece of art that's like circulating. I don't always know how these things make it out into the world. But there's a model sheet I did for myself of a Terry Hatcher-esque Lois Lane that has like made it out into the collector's market, and nobody knows what the hell it is. And I saw it online at one point. I went, "Oh my God, that's my Lois Lane model sheet for himself. How'd that get out there?"
Somebody's gone through your stuff.
I mean, it's crazy. I had a rep that went through some stuff at my studio one, taking art product that I'm not normally put out in front of people, but collectors are interested in us. And, what are you going to do? Sometimes the silliest little things that contributed to a cover or something, somebody's interested in paying a few bucks for it. Kind of crazy.
I mean, it's not the way to go about it, but I mean, at least that's a sign you're a good artist. I mean, people are looking to sell your work behind your back.
I gave him permission to go through the studio.
Oh, okay.
Some of the stuff he thought was worth taking.
Any villains you liked working with? Because I know like the around this time for this first issue, like the 123 when he gets the containment suit, Metallo's running around.
Yeah, the one that I really enjoyed, and it's one of the reasons we used in Strange Visitor Story, was Parasite. I had been a fan of Parasite since the original stories by Al Plastino and the covers by Kurt Swan. And that character always fascinated me. And what they did with him with the round mouth with all the making him look like a sucker fish or something I enjoyed all of that. I actually did him again in this project for Warner that I talked about before. They were supposed to be flash animation for iPhone, but they were never produced. They never handed them off to an animation company to produce them, so they never made it any further than ebooks that were available for a while. But yeah, so I would say Parasite's a big favorite. Trying to think what other characters. I enjoyed drawing Lex a lot because they had given him some a real meaty face and a jaw, and he was a lot of fun to draw too. Oftentimes the bad guys are a lot more animated in the facial features and stuff, and kind of really sink your teeth into them. So trying to think if there were any other. I don't think I actually designed anybody along the way. I mean, that was, mostly the guys who were actually creating the concepts were the ones that were actually designing the characters along at the same time, or the artists that they were working with. And so we would get model sheets. We would get a weekly bundle of model sheets and everybody's plots and everybody's pencils and all that. And you had to make that bundle every week, especially for anything that was going to be reflected in the issue right after yours, the week after yours, and the week after. Crazy.
So besides the pay, you're getting sneak peeks of upcoming issues. All right.
Oh yeah, very much so. We were very aware of what everybody else was doing, and the pay was terrific. I mean, we were in very rarefied air on the Superman books at that time. I don't know if that's still the case, but at that time, it was you were under a special contract and it was very rarefied. So it was a real pleasure to be there. I would have stuck around had I had a choice.
So I assume it was, but like when they introduced the concept of Electric Superman, did that boost numbers?
That one I'm not so sure. They certainly gave it a huge push because the sales department at that point, the whole publishing end of it, they expected, for some ridiculous reason, they thought they could maintain the Death of Superman numbers forever. And what other idea is going to have that impact? And so no, there were not lines around the block thinking they were going to put their kids through college on Superman Blue, that kind of thing. But it did generate some interest. I had to show up at a local Pittsburgh TV station to do a feed where myself and Carl Kiesel, he was in another city doing a local feed, and we were being interviewed by different reporters from different areas, doing promotion. And we were all told, this is Superman now, and if they say, well, is this going to last? Is this permanent? This is Superman now. And, so it was interesting. And like I said, that piece of art was showing up in TV Guide and all kinds. And, I have some newspapers that people sent me from all over the country that had that artwork. It was a crazy time. So it was a real push. How the numbers went, I really don't know. I've never really been privy to that, and I don't really like to get that in my head where that's what I'm worried about because basically we sit by ourselves in a room and we produce this stuff, which is why so many of us enjoy going to conventions, because we can actually meet the people that are paying our rent. But that's not even a question I often ask editors or anything, and quite often the editors aren't privy to it either. But it only stuck around. It stuck around for like a year. It was 97. Yeah, I think it only stuck around for like a year or two.
Yeah, just a year. Yeah,
between Superman Blue and then the Red and Blue stuff and Millennium Giants. Whether or not that was a blip, I don't know. They were really trying. I mean, when they did the Millennium Giants and all the covers formed like a giant poster, where Red and Blue were forming a DNA helix on the covers.
Yeah.
I designed those covers.
Oh, nice.
The art themselves were done by the artists on the issue, but they needed one of us to actually design the cover so it would be consistent and everything. So I got tagged to do that, and it kind of worked. I thought. I never saw the poster that they did of it, but the covers themselves all ended up kind of working.
Definitely.
You tell me, were they big sellers? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I liked them. I don't know. Again, if you don't know the numbers, I don't know.
Yeah, I just, let's say they did. They were a huge hit.
All that stuff needs reprint. I don't think, have they reprinted the Electric Superman that whole year?
So.
I don't think.
There were a couple of trades, but they've never done as far as I know, they've never done, what do they call those things?
Oh, the big omnibuses or whatever.
Omnibuses.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever put it together as an omnibus, but there were some trade paperbacks early on collected.
I always just assume when like a character's in a movie, especially like Superman, that they like just start reprinting everything they can get their hands on.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I always hoped that they would do some version of it on the animated series, the Bruce Timm series. I always was kind of hoping that they would do some version of Superman Blue just so I could see the design done by. But alas, they never did.
There's still time though.
Well, I hope that that James Gunn decides that that's going to be Superman 3 or something.
Yeah.
Quite possible.
I'm sure he's not going to get that desperate that fast.
So, since you designed the look, is there any other artist? Because again, just in the core Superman books and wherever Superman appeared that year, he was wearing that suit. So, was there any artist where you're just like, okay, he gets it? This artist gets it.
Most of them did a fine job. I did a model sheet that I've shown it on Facebook a few times. I did like a turnaround that was kind of based on the old Super Friends turnaround for everybody. And everybody pretty much. There were some people from other titles. Who was the gentleman that was writing JLA at the time.
Oh, Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison. He did some things with the use of the powers that were really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And he did some really cool stuff with the electrical powers that I thought worked incredibly well. But I think it was also JLA that was the book that nobody assumed, because somebody asked me at one point, well, what's the back of it look like when I was doing the model sheet? And I said, he's got the S on the back too. I said, because Superman and Spider-Man are the two main characters that have their symbol both on the front and back. And the editor I was talking to went, I never noticed that before. Said, what do you mean you never noticed it before? That's you know, and Superman always had the yellow S on the back, and until some of the movies decided to ditch it, you know, that kind of. But yeah, so he's supposed to have the S on the front and the back, and there were some artists who weren't privy to that or weren't looking at the reference all that closely, and occasionally he wouldn't have the S on the back in some of the. What are you going to do? Sometimes working in comics visually, it's like a game of telephone, and you slowly lose things over time, you know. Nobody ever really decided that Storm had a white costume for some reason. It started out as a black leather suit with no color on it, and within a few issues it was white, and it was white on the X-Men cartoon, and everybody went, why is Storm wearing a white costume? I don't know. The Beast was blue. He went from gray to black.
Yeah.
People got lazy with the black, and he ended up blue. And now in the dialogue, they even say he's got blue fur. Well, I didn't start out that.
I always thought issues like that were just like with like the art process back in the day, because like when the Hulk, you know, issue 1 the Hulk was gray, and then issue 2 he's green, and it was just the gray didn't show up or something, or
they ran out of the.
Well, you know, it was what was it, the late 60s, early 70s, I guess, the Beast in Amazing Adventure.
Oh yeah.
Started out gray, and they made a big deal. It was in story. His fur went black, and that's what he was for a while until people stopped putting the black in, and he became blue. So a lot of characters kind of evolved that way. It's like a game of telephone. It really is. You know, a lot of people, when they're doing a character, they just look at the last time the character appeared, which is something I always try to avoid, just me personally. And you can tell from my Spider-Man and Thor and everything, is if I'm doing a character of any kind, I go back to the first appearance and try to see the root of it and stuff. And it's amazing how, you know, even editors don't really notice it over time. Because when I was working on some things for some characters for the Marvel Universe Handbook, and they gave me Cobra, I guess because I was on Thor at the time, or I don't know. I don't even know if I was on Thor at the time, to tell you the truth. But they gave me Cobra, and I went back to the original Don Heck Thor story, and I called the editor, and I said, do you want me to draw the Cobra the way he was designed, or do you want me to draw the Cobra the way he looked in his last appearance? And the editor went, what's the difference? I said, considerable, actually. And he made the call to, well, without knowing for sure, he just went, well, go with the original design. And I said, oh, cool, because I like that better. And it was considerably different from what it had become through the hands of Kirby, all these other guys that have done him in the meantime. You know, I mean, the most recent, I think at the time, was John Romita Jr. and Jim Mooney on Spider-Man. But because it became like a loose tunic and, you know, it was loose material. That's not the way he was originally designed by Don Heck. So, yeah, it's crazy, but it happens with characters all the time.
So their character
with your design for Hobgoblin, how much that changed from your initial design?
Well, from John Romita Jr.'s design.
Right, and just in a couple of years, like all of a sudden the cape was all tattered and ripped, and he had claws.
It was also like the Demo Goblin for a while.
Right.
You know, that the one that was possessed was the guy who had been Jack-O-Lantern,
right,
named Hobgoblin, and then he got possessed during one of the X-Men crossover things. Yeah, it's crazy. But when I do Hobgoblin, I always make his arms and legs green.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works better with the orange, and people always point it out. They say, "Really, was he green or was he?" And no, he wasn't. He was kind of a greenish blue sometimes, and other people just colored him dark blue. And it's tough sometimes to get anything colored the way you want it. I mean, there was one there was one character we designed for MC2 that I wanted a green blue, more green, but they were afraid of going too green because green and red together look like Christmas.
Oh, right.
So he was quite often colored red and blue, and it's like, yeah, because we don't have enough red and blue characters. but a few times they nailed it. They got it right exactly the way I intended it, with a green blue that worked really, really well. What would that color be? Not green and blue together.
Turquoise or aquamarine.
Yeah. And it was a character called the Buzz that was, so he was kind of a bug type thing. And I'm going, come on, look at a fly. So But yeah, those are the little things behind the scenes that drive us crazy. I have a dear friend that, when she's complaining to me about her real job, and I'll say, no, I understand what you're saying. I've had problems like that. And I go, oh yeah, Ron, like when they color your pants wrong. And I'm like, well, that was kind of mean and a little unnecessary, and kind of hurtful. But yes.
I mean, I know it. You put it. It's hard work and everything, Ron. But again, I mean, at the end of the day, you're drawing Superman, you're drawing Spider-Man, you're drawing Thor.
No.
Yeah.
I talk all the time about DeFalco and I having phone conversations that grown men should not be having about fictional characters, because they, we kind of have to treat them like they're real, and we sound like crazy people. I saw an interview recently. It was an older interview, of course, but it was Marv Wolfman and George Perez talking to each other about sitting in a diner, because they lived very close to each other when they were working on New Teen Titans, and they were talking about killing Tara. They were talking about killing a 15-year-old girl. And they realized at one point that they're in a diner talking about murdering a 15-year-old girl. And nobody called the cops. You want to believe, they're talking about a comic book character. But who knows? Maybe they just didn't really care.
You just want to wear a big T-shirt that says, "No, stay calm. I'm a writer."
Yeah. That's great.
Yep.
So, with certain characters, you've done so much Spider-Man. Do you even have to look anymore at any reference, or are you just like, I got Spider-Man down?
It depends. If we're doing something era specific, I'll look at it. I mean, if I'm just drawing Spider-Man out of my head, it's an amalgam of everything that's lodged up there over the years. It's a kind of a cross between Romita and Ditko, and with elements of everybody else that's ever handled the character. But for me these days, I find I have some real enjoyment trying to put away how I would do it and looking at reference and trying to recreate the way other people have done it. I really enjoy drawing Spider-Man as much like Ditko as I can, because the Ditko vibe was something that was very unique for Spider-Man. The way he stood, the way he moved, the way he drew the eyes, the way the webbing was never systemized by Ditko. He would draw it however it worked for the shot, that kind of thing. And I was never one of those guys that thought, well, you got to decide which way his webbing goes and then draw it that way every single time. I've never been like that. Even with Thor, people would say, well, don't you get bored drawing the character? No, because if I do, I just start drawing the helmet wings differently. I draw the tunic different. I draw, there's elements. He has so many different costume elements that you can, by looking at other people that have handled the character over you can find different ways to play with the detail. And, so yeah, I'm not one of those guys that's going to draw the character the same way for 30 years. And, because you don't want to get bored. You want to experiment with all the different ways he's been done. I mean, every time I show a commission on my Facebook page, somebody always brings up the fact that I unless I'm specifically asked not to, I draw the underarm webbing all the time, because that is a wonderfully unique part of that costume that Ditko gave. And I think it was a tragedy that it was ever lost. And I'm surprised how many people draw it without the underarm webbing. That's cool. That's Spider-Man.
Yeah, definitely.
And with Superman, it's the same thing. You can draw the trunks the way Kurt Swan used to draw them, or you can draw them the way Neil Adams used to draw them. That and the belt and the S itself, I had a tag off of some Superman merchandise that was just the S symbol on a little piece of cardboard that was on a little tag on some merch. And I took it and I taped it to my wall when I was working on the Superman book. So I would have something to look at to draw the S correctly all the time. It's not that hard, but it should be drawn correctly because that's part of the trademark. You know, I mean, if given a choice, DC Publishing would prefer you draw the S correctly all the time.
You know how much merch we got out here? You guys draw that S right.
Yeah.
So I saw you on your Facebook page. You've had some sketches of Spider-Man and Superman because we are getting a new Superman Spider-Man.
Yeah, my comment was, I hear this is a thing again.
50 years later.
You know, I was there when they did the original tabloid. That was amazing. Oh, that was an incredible thing to be a comics fan during. And it made so much sense back then because back then, Ross Andru and Jerry Conway were from a very select group of guys who had worked on both characters.
Yep.
Right.
You know, somebody came on my page and said they should have asked you to do one of the umpteen million
variant covers or whatever.
Covers, yeah.
Somebody should have asked you to do one. And obviously they're not thinking that direction at all because who should really be doing one is Dan Jurgens because he came on Superman during the Ben Reilly phase.
Oh yeah.
It was like drawing a Spider-Man book. Mm-hmm. So he's written and drawn Superman and Spider-Man and he's not doing a variant cover. That's a miss. That's a huge miss, you know. And yeah, I take a certain amount of satisfaction from the fact that I got to work on both. Yeah, that would have been swell if they would have asked.
I mean, the variant cover they should have had you do was Electric Superman, since you designed the suit, and Black Suit Spider-Man. You were like, you're the first guy who draw that Black Suit Spider-Man.
I actually did a commission. Somebody wanted the original Superman Spider-Man cover by Ross Andru and Dick Giordano that was originally laid out by Infantino, I think. But they wanted Superman in the black suit that he wore when he came back from the dead.
Oh, yeah.
Superman in his black costume. And
nice.
they got breeding to ink it. And it ended up looking pretty cool.
Oh, I bet that was cool.
Did he have the long hair?
I don't know. I think he would have had to. Yeah, that's where it came from. But and I did the back of that original tabloid of them standing back to back. I did do one with Electric Blue Superman and Black Costume Spider-Man. You can probably find it, but that would have been cool too because I see they're doing all kinds of different versions. They're doing Miles Morales, Superboy Prime with Spider-Man in the black suit. But it's all these artists that, and it's possible. I haven't been as connected as I should be to what's being done currently. The ones that I've seen are either the Superman guys that are currently doing World's Finest and Superman and things like that are doing Spider-Man for the first time, which is really cool to see. But I really haven't seen. I think Bagley has done both characters, so I think he did a variant cover, which that makes sense. But they're obviously not worried about it being people that have touched both characters. They're just getting a lot of superstars and current guys. Sienkiewicz did one, all that. And if you can get guys like that, you don't need an old broken down bastard like that.
Oh, come on. Well, I think just like with the Deadpool Batman and Batman Deadpool, I think this is the DC one, and then they're going to have a Marvel one here soon. So
more covers.
This is the modern version of hologram covers and lenticulars.
It's not a black bag yet. Don't.
Oh, the blind bags. No.
There you go. Why not? I mean, we had DeFalco and I had a 10-page story in Venom 252 with the legacy numbering and stuff. We did a little 10-page backup. And I went in to pick up a copy, and there were like a dozen variant covers on that too. It was like, what the hell? It's nuts. I actually
like 8 of them. I think it was 8 variant covers.
Oh wow,
at least. And I've done some variant covers. There was that Spider-Man Black, White, and Blood or something.
Oh yeah.
Brett Breeding and I were asked to do a variant for that. I've got one coming out next month for for the Planet of the Apes versus the Fantastic Four.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
So we did a spoof of Fantastic Four 12 with the Hulk waiting in the tunnel for the FF to come around, and the FF is walking up the tunnel, and there Ursus and some other apes are waiting to ambush them and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, that'll be out month sometime.
Oh, yeah. Well, how many people have a signed print of Ron Frenz signed from New Dimension Comics here in
yeah.
Pittsburgh?
Only people that live outside of Pittsburgh, Phil.
Yeah. God, that was I forget what year this was. That was back when it was at I think it was in Century 3 Mall. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah, when they were in the abandoned Century 3
Before it started crumbling. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And there were cables taped to the floor everywhere. It was crazy. One time they set me up in what used to be a jewelry store because they still had all the glass cases and all that. Yeah. It's a different animal now. But Todd McDevitt's been very good to me over the years. I've known him since he was a kid. It's incredible that he can keep those stores going the way as strongly as they've been going. So God love him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one down at the waterfront, that's a really nice one. Lilith, that's that big one we went to that one time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That one's really nice.
They
nice
got some
big.
really good. John Engel's really on top of things and runs a tight ship. And I tend to go out to the Cranberry one more often. In fact, I think I owe them money. They send you emails. They send you emails now when your box gets a little full and.
Don't forget to swing on by.
No, I got to get my butt out there. Yeah.
You're sure you could just sign some covers and they'll be good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I pay over the phone. I just call them and give them a card number and pay over the phone, and they put it in a separate part of the box of stuff that's already paid for because I don't get out as often.
Yeah, that's like a friend of ours in the Midwest. That's how he does it. He orders his stuff from whatever store he does, and they just send him a box at the end of every month of his stuff.
I'll have to suggest that to Todd. Could you just mail it to me? I'm old.
You just have the guy drive it out here.
DoorDash for comics.
There you go. See?
Did we just invent something, guys?
Yeah.
You just invented something there.
Yeah, I'm gonna copyright that.
That would save the comics industry. All these lazy people have to go get their own comics.
Straight from the warehouse. Maybe
We'll
we're
call
onto
it the
something.
Osgood method.
That's right. I love that. I love that.
Nice. All right. All right, gang. Anyone have any other questions for Mr. Frenz here?
No, it's been an absolute life.
I had one question.
Please.
Marvel and DC have both been doing these kind of cool, like flashback series that are set like in past of just whatever character. And I was curious if either company approached you and said, you have like a 5 or 6 issue miniseries to work on, but you get to pick what era. Which one would you like to revisit the most?
Oh, what would I?
Yeah.
I've always said I'd love to work on any character pre-1970, 1960, because that's when I grew up as a kid. Stuff I love. The version of those characters that I really enjoy are the Vision from 1969. That kind of thing. And so anything like that. DeFalco and I got a chance. They did a mini series called Hulk Smash Avengers when one of the Avengers movies was, and we at one point we were initially approached to do the entire mini series, and it was supposed to jump through different eras of the dynamic between the Hulk and the and that didn't last. I think DeFalco was asked to kind of like block out what each era would be and stuff, but we ended up just doing the first issue, and it was set, very much in the early to mid '60s with the Avengers. And Iron Man had the rivets in his helmet, and the Hulk was a little more intelligent and mean, and Zemo and the Masters of Evil were in it and all that, and it was a lot of fun. Sal Buscema inked it, and it was just it was a joy for me because that was my era, when Don Heck would have been doing the Avengers and stuff. So I mean, a project like that I would have a lot of fun with something like that, but they've never actually pitched anything like that. I was part of kind of a small part. There were a lot of people involved in it. They did a 12-issue series called Fantastic Four, the world's greatest comics magazine. It was originally conceived by Eric Larson, and different writers scripted each issue. And it basically happened between issue 100 and 101 of Fantastic Four. And it was, just a big love letter to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Joe Sinnott. And Sinnott actually did some of the inks on it. Bruce Timm was even coerced into doing some inks for it, some covers for it and stuff. And that was a lot of fun because that's an era I enjoy. And it was an apex for the art form. I've always, once I was lucky enough to get hired into this industry, I've never been a big one for trying to, think outside the box or expand the envelope or anything. I've been really happy to be in this envelope and try to keep some connection to the 60s and 70s, because we all love most the era that we discovered comics in. I mean, that's just the way it works. You got kids now that, oh yeah, the 2010s, that was when comics were the best. There are 90s kids everywhere, the Image kids, and
sure,
90s Marvel quite often was a train wreck, because they didn't know what they wanted to be because the Image guys were very popular, and certain artists were trying to emulate an Image style instead of just doing what they did best. And it was a very odd time to be working, at Marvel in particular. So, but everybody loves that. Their era is how they discovered comics. They think that's what comics should be. That's cool. That's the way it should be. But
bouncing off Justin's question, I wanted to Marvel. We needed DeFalco and Frenz, either Eric Masterson Thor or Eric Masterson Thunderstrike miniseries.
Yes, I would love either one of those.
When we were given the opportunity to do a Thunderstrike, at one point when Tom was considering retiring from comics because he does have other writing gigs he could pursue, he sent out an email to everybody and said, "Is anybody interested in seeing anything by Ron Frenz and I?" And it was, I forget who the gentleman was, but it was somebody in the managerial end of Marvel answered with, "I know, I'd like to see a Thunderstrike miniseries." And we went, "Really? Okay." Because, it had been 15, 20 years since Thunderstrike had been. And what was interesting is it was a really product of its time. And by that, I mean, I think it was in like 2010 or something we did this. And Tom and I had both been through some major losses of people in our life. So we discussed it, and we really didn't feel like we wanted to resurrect Eric or bring Eric back. So we had Kevin sitting right there, his son, as a legacy character. And, he had some experience with that with Spider-Girl. We had already done a legacy Thunderstrike in the MC2.
Yep.
And we basically decided, well, this could be fun. How about if we do a legacy Thunderstrike, but everywhere we went right with the MC2 character, we'll go left with one for the 616, and which is what we did. And we had a great time. I enjoyed it. I think it was like a 5-issue miniseries in 2010. And nobody is, one or two people have touched the character since, but otherwise it just kind of, didn't go anywhere, and it didn't become its own series or anything. And frankly, if we did it again, I have an idea. I've pitched it to DeFalco how we could bring Eric back if anybody was bringing Eric back. If it ever comes up, we never say never. Let's put it that way. But we did a 10-page flashback in a book called Thor the Worthy. It was a one-shot that came out when one of the Thor movies, Thunder, and it had several stories in it. It had like 3 or 4 stories in it. So we did a 10-page Thunderstrike that was a flashback to Eric and Code Blue.
Oh, nice.
And that kind of stuff. So look it up. But I'd love to do that kind of stuff. But again, Tom and I, we get to the point where, as cranky old men sometimes, like, well, they only ask us if they want it to be nostalgic, if they want it to be a flashback, if they want it to, because, we got ideas. We could do contemporary stuff. We were doing contemporary stuff back then. Contemporary. Yeah. We could do that, that kind of thing. So who knows? I don't know what, right now I have something on my table. I'm still doing work for an outfit called Sit Comics out of California, that the Blue Baron, and helping out with different books there. But and occasionally Marvel calls us and we do covers or 10-page stories or something. It's been fun to keep your hand in. Otherwise, I'm living off the commissions that you see on Facebook. And luckily, there are enough people who read my stuff when they were kids and have some disposable cash and are interested in commissions. So that's cool.
Any con appearances, especially local?
Well, I do Three Rivers Con every year.
Yes.
Down at the convention center, and this year I'm doing Heroes Con again down in North Carolina, and they've been very kind to it. We've done it the last several years, and we do pretty well there. And this year I'm also doing Terrificon up in Connecticut during the summer. So it's I don't enjoy traveling. I don't really get. I enjoy meeting the fans, but I don't like this
Getting there.
any of the exactly the travel and even the celebrity part of it is come on, okay. I mean, I have a rep, a gentleman named Scott Kress that runs CatskillComics.com, and I'm always happy to do shows with him because I hate telling people what I'm charging. I feel embarrassed because he wants me usually to charge more. Usually in Pittsburgh, I'm charging a little less than what we charge on the website because I just feel embarrassed by it, and so I like having Scott there because he can do all the money stuff and I just get to sit and draw.
I mean, the prices must be good because I swear I've looked on Catskill once or twice, thinking I'm like, okay, how much would it cost me to pick up some Ron Frenz art? And I swear every time I look, it's like, oh no, the commission list is full.
Oh yeah, I have some. Hopefully that'll turn into some job security moving forward. But we do have a wait list. We've had a wait list since COVID. Because that year that there were no conventions, we got a ridiculous wait list. People drop off every time we get to the next round, and he starts contacting people. People drop off all the time. I can certainly understand. I mean, because sometimes it can be a year or two, and they don't even remember that they put themselves on the wait list. And I mean, we've even had people who have ordered something and then call back and say, "Did he start on that yet? Because I'm not going to be able to do it." So, your wife found out, did she? And that's legit, I get it, and it's all part of the whole ridiculous. Yeah. But, I mean, anybody else have any other questions? What did you think? I'm kind of curious to hear, Justin, what you thought of Superman 2. And
I love it. I love it. I wish that I had kind of collected this when it came out because this is great. I mean, I never thought that I would enjoy a revamp of Superman this way, but I am. I think it's great. I love the stories. I love all the art. Obviously, is great, and it's just a really cool redesign. I really like it.
Living through it at the time, with people being cynical about it because we know it's not going to stick, or people going, "What are you, crazy?" and all that kind of stuff. It's really weird now, all these years later, to hear people on my Facebook page come on and say, "That's my Superman."
Yeah.
The black costume Spider-Man is their Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Should have kept the black suit on Spider-Man. And Superman Blue is my Superman. What are you kidding me? Really? At the time, Joe Jusko, no less.
Oh yeah.
Drop a little. Joe Jusko, the famed painter and illustrator. He was living in Pittsburgh and we would get together once a month with a bunch of other guys, the Pittsburgh Freelancers thing dinner, first Fridays, and he referred to it as Super Krista Yamaguchi Man, and he rode me that costume every chance he got. So it was not something, much like with the black suit, and everybody looks back on it now and thinks it was, some big revamp of Spider-Man with a new team and everything. It really was. And this, nobody was treating it that way at the time. Nobody was going, "Oh my God, Ron, you got to redesign the Man of Steel." No, they were calling him the Man of Teal. And what are you doing? He looks ridiculous. He's in a onesie. even Al Jaffe at Mad Magazine did one of those little foldy things and made fun of the suit. And Norm Macdonald on Saturday Night Live made fun of the suit. You know, that it looked gay. You know, and all that kind of stuff. It was brutal. It was brutal. See all the action figures now, and to have people come on and say that was my Superman. I'm like, where the hell were you at the time? You were not a vocal minority at the time. I mean, we were getting hammered. I was getting hammered. Look at this. Anyway,
told you a lot of people didn't appreciate what we had in the '90s, but now they do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lilith,
absolutely.
you've got a thumbnail of one of the action figures. Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Do you think it was pointless or what?
I mean, even as a young child, I think I was probably 7 or 8. I knew it wasn't going to stick around, so I just had fun with it. And I kind of enjoy rereading it as an adult with kind of fresher, mature eyes. And I every character needs a revamp. It's and electrical powers for Superman. I'm like, well, yeah, solar. I just the fact that they never really nailed down the power set thing kind of bothers me. But I thought that the electrical powers, he's tied to the sun. It kind of makes it's just fun, and I definitely like the design, and I especially like the JLA part because Grant Morrison goes absolutely crazy with the powers.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, it was really interesting to see. But he was like that with everybody's superpowers.
Yeah.
Cool stuff for the Atom to do, and he was always a master. But
he's a very open-minded guy, it seems like, and he was just like, okay, how can I come at this with a fresh approach and blow everybody's mind?
Right. Yeah, and he obviously has some scientific background too. He does some reading and comes up with new and interesting ways to use the powers. I was glad to hear you say the one thing though, that you knew it wasn't going to be permanent, so you had some fun with it. And I wish more fans could do that.
Yes.
But they can be very, it's kind of gatekeeping, and they can be very protective and very insecure and jealous of
proprietal.
Proprietal of the version of the character they enjoy, and they just really get weird when you play with it, and it's like you're not letting yourself have any fun with this. I mean,
exactly.
Seeing Superman not know what his power set was at first and everything, that was interesting to me. That was kind of cool. And the fact that when he turned to Clark, he was fully human. I wish they would have done more story-wise with that, to tell you the truth, because, he was really us for a while.
He was vulnerable for the first time.
Exactly. I mean, I like I said, I wish they would have explored that a little bit more than they had a chance to do, because once they got into the Superman Red, Superman Blue, and the two personalities and all that kind of stuff, we lost track of it, But it was a lot of fun. I remember enjoying a big part of that. I mean, like I was saying before, I would draw Clark in double-breasted gray suits quite a bit, and once I even put him in the hat. I even put him in the George Reeves hat.
Oh yeah,
just for the heck of it, and see if anybody would say anything. And they didn't take it out, so I figured, okay,
Nobody told us.
No, everybody that worked on those books was a fan, so I'm sure they knew where it was coming from. And, what the hell? People still wear hats occasionally. Anyway, it's been a real pleasure, guys.
Thank you so much again. I mean, we enjoyed the story. I mean, enjoyed the chat, and I even told Justin. I said Justin and I talked to Tom like a year or so ago. I'm like, we have to get both you and Tom on at some point.
Yes.
That's
that'd be great.
Conversation.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. We've actually done some We did Superman Beyond, a one shot too, where it was the first time that Tom and I really got to indulge our love of our mutual love of Superman and play with it. And it was an older Superman from the Bruce Timm Batman Beyond stuff.
Yeah.
An older Superman trying to decide what's next for him. I don't know why that would appeal to guys like me and Tom, but he had some fun with it. And that didn't go the way it was supposed to go either, because we were supposed to start doing stories for online, and we were setting all that up. And it was right around the time DC was moving to the West Coast. And we had a deal with one of the editorial teams that we were going to be doing these Superman Beyond stories. And somewhere along the line, that handshake deal got lost in the shuffle in the move out to the West Coast. And an editorial team out on the West Coast had already hired a whole bunch of new people to do Superman Beyond stories. And it was real weird because they introduced Superman Beyond in a Batman Beyond annual, and I forget who wrote it, but it was fairly dark. And when they said they wanted to do Superman Beyond stories, they said, but could you get him past the dark times so we can start fresh with these stories? So that's what we did in our one shot. We kind of got him past the really dark stuff and kind of set him up for a future. But then it was handed to this other team, and they took him right back to the dark stuff.
Oh no! Yeah.
But they didn't read our one shot at all, and he came up with a new secret identity, and he became a fireman or something. And I mean, I didn't read the stuff, so I can't speak to the quality of the work, but it was a real whiplash effect. If you liked the character and you were trying to read the character, it was a real 180 360 thing. And but that would have been fun too, because we had some pretty neat ideas for pursuing an older Superman iteration of it. We have as many ideas that didn't make it to the page as we do that did. And if you're in this business long enough, you start to really collect those. Anyway.
All right. Thank you, sir. Again, this has been a pleasure. So I'm sure we'll bug you again at some point. Like I said, we'd love to get you and Tom together.
That would be great, though. I mean, the fact that you're right outside of Pittsburgh.
Yes.
No, I hope you make it down to Three Rivers if you can, and we'll see you there. But it's been a real pleasure. Nice meeting you guys. And,
yes, you too. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping this stuff alive. Like I said, I never got it at the time, so it's nice to get a little appreciation now.
Yes. Yeah.
An old man thanks you.
I think that's it. An old man thanks you.